Hi, it's me again, and now we're going to talk about the A.R.R.C mode for Anno 2070. I've already talked about, or at least mentioned, the A.R.R.C mode for Anno 2070 in my Anno 2070 review, but I thought that since this mode is so large and contains so many different things, it would be important to talk about this mode in its entirety in a separate review. And since you know this is a separate review, I of course have a different shirt on. Apparently I turned eco between the two reviews, and seeing how this thing is obviously green, it's of course pandemic proof, as everyone knows. Now, the A.R.R.C mode, of course the name itself, is another abbreviation, and that has to do something with the fact that all the techs of the tech civilization, they like to use different acronyms or abbreviations for some things. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. And well, the abbreviation for A.R.C, it's apparently Advanced Research and Refinement something something center. I'll put a link to it in the description box if I find out the correct name. Anyway, that just as a small intro. And now we're going to talk about the entire mode. Now, what's new? What's different about this mode, and why should you have it when playing Anno 2070? Well, first of all, it does in fact make certain aspects of the game much more fun, and of course, much easier. Well, let's just talk about a few fun things before I get into the whole technical details and all that. What's interesting about this is in this mode you have the option to build buildings in different textures. You basically have your original texture from the main Anno 2070 game, and then you have a new texture that's specifically designed within this mode, and it basically gives you the option to build your buildings in black. They're all like black and white, and it looks really cool. It looks like really futuristic. Essentially, when you're playing the text, it does look it looks really cool actually. And you can actually combine this. You can make one part of your city the normal textures, and you basically have the whole like separate black community essentially, for lack of a better word. And yeah, another interesting thing about this new mod is the icons. When you're installing this mode, you can basically choose between blue icons, then everything is in one blue color, and colored icons, which basically gives all of the icons for all of the goods that you can produce and get and all that. They're in color, and it makes it look much cooler. Now, what would a mode be without new buildings? Not just new textures, new buildings. You can actually get new buildings or new ships and all that in this mode. I just want to talk about two briefly. One of them is the Eden Former. Now, in the game, in the original game, the Eden Former, which essentially clears up the entire air, or something, the technology isn't really explained, but it basically boosts your eco balance to, let's see, I have a 500, but if it's wrong, I'll just put it in the description down below. And with the A.R.R.C mode, excuse me, I was talking about the original game. In the original game, the Eden Former basically only exists as a passive force, essentially. You find them on some islands if you have the environmental effects option selected, and it just boosts the entire eco-balance of the city. In the A.R.R.C mode, you can actually build this. You can actually build the Eden Former. There are 4 different versions of it. There are 2 where it's on a kind of platform or something, and there's one where it rests on like these feet, kind of. And it comes in 2 colors. It comes in the natural color and in red. And of course, if you build this thing, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a maximum level of eco-balance. There's no limit as to how many you can build, so you can essentially have 2 or 3 on one island, and you basically have a maximum amount of eco-balance. So that's kind of cool, even though some people might even go as far as to say that's kind of cheating, but if it bleeds, it leads, I guess. Another interesting fact is that another interesting building you can build is the sand extractor for land. Now, in the original game, you could only build a sand extractor on a river. There are parts of these rivers. They're how to explain this? They're basically like stones on 2 opposite parts, banks of the river, and if you can only put the sand extractor on this gap between these 2 stones. Now, the sand extractor isn't the only building that you have to put on this part of the river, which of course means you do have to kind of think how much space you're going to use for your sand extractor and how much for other buildings. With the A.R.C mode, you don't have to worry about that anymore, because, as I said, there is now a sand extractor for land, which of course is very efficient and very helpful. Now, what are some of the major new things about this mode? Well, the biggest change to Anno 2070 is the fact that they've included 2 more options for building. One of them is that you can build all of the residences, all of the needs for activity and all that, as essentially, I guess for the residences, you could sort of say show homes. You essentially just build them for decoration. I have no idea why they included it. It makes no real sense, actually. It's just a waste of place, of space. But I guess if you have a city that's like eco-balance minus 200, and you do kind of want to make it look like a real city, maybe that's what it's for. I have no idea. The second option is essentially the option to build cities on the water. What you essentially do is you build the cities on the dock platform thing that you can build. This of course has one major advantage. Of course, you don't have to use up space for land, which is of course very helpful in missions like, let's say, I did this recently on the last mission of the Eden Former global event, where you have to get, in the last mission, you have to get 5,000 tycoons, executives, eco-executives. And of course, if you do this all on this one island, because you have to kind of do it on one island to get all the resources to build that huge city, if you build this all on one island, you're never going to have enough space. So now with the A.R.C mode, you basically have the option to expand your city onto the water, which of course is very helpful. And if you want to know how to build a city on the water, because I'm not actually going to get into that now, you can either go on the homepage of the mod. I'll put the link again in the description, or there are tutorials on how to do it. I'll put one link again in the description. Just go and watch that. And yeah. Another interesting another interesting addition to this, to the text at least, and it's sort of a 0.5 kind of thing when talking about new possibilities of building. So there are like 2.5 new ways of building. It's not really entirely new, it's just an extension of the whole dock building on water building thing, is that with the text you can actually now build your cities underwater, which is really which is awesome. Which is really, really awesome, because you can actually do this in the original Anno 2070 game, but with the A.R.R.C mode, you can actually do this. And yeah, they do have additional buildings designed specifically for building underwater. And so that's essentially one of the new cool things. Of course, you do need to have a plateau that's big enough, so like one strip kind of plateau, that's not going to work. Then you can actually build off the plateau. So yeah, you do have to find a plateau, underwater plateau, that's actually big enough to actually do this. But it is kind of cool, because I was talking about how Anno 2070 is sort of an in-game sequel to Waterworld, with this new underwater building mode for houses. To some extent, you can kind of build Rapture from BioShock. To some extent, yes, it does look like that, sort of. I think that's kind of funny. When I build one underwater, I just call it Rapture. I just do. That's just, I don't know, just fun. Now, but again, as with the original game, there are its pros and cons, and there is one con to Anno 20, to the A.R.R.C mod, and again, it has to do with the internet connection. Because if you install this mod, you can only play it on. You can only play it offline. You can only play it offline. So again, you don't get certain buildings. You can't participate in the World Council election. You can't participate in the Senate election. You can't participate in any of the global events, any of the daily events. But they did fix this. There is this cookie that you can download, again, on the homepage. If you go on downloads, it's there. If you go on the homepage, it's like here, somewhere like here-ish. There's this download link, and you can go in there and you basically install this cookie, and then you can play it normal, like with your account, with everything. So that's that. Also, there's this weird bug where they've introduced a new building. It's called the Trade Port or Trade Airport or something, and that's another thing they did in the original game. If you build like a wharf, you have both kinds of ships in one building. You can build battleships and trading ships in one building. In this mode, they've essentially split it in half. You have one wharf for battleships and one for trading ships, and the same thing goes for For airports, you have one airport for military aircrafts and one for trading aircrafts. And now the trading aircraft one, there is a bug in this, which basically is that you have to be careful when placing the airport in games that you haven't saved while having the A.R.R.C mode installed. I've never experienced it because if it says warning, warning, don't do, I just don't do it. But there's apparently this bug, so it kind of doesn't work right. Yeah, so that for Contras. Yeah. So, well, that's pretty much, I don't have actually anything else on my list that I want to talk about. I've covered the new textures, I've covered the new building design, pretty much have everything I wanted to say. Oh yeah, additionally, regarding the new buildings and all that, the entire the entire interface has been changed. And if you go into the tech button, there's this red block for additional decorations, and that's one of the interesting things about this mode. It gives you the option to build the decorations that in the original were literally just that, the decorations for the ports of NPCs, all that kind of stuff. For example, the flat screens you see on some NPC's dock, you can now build that. And it does look really cool. I'll admit that. So yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say about the A.R.R.C mode. As I've said in the last 3 minutes of my Anno 2070 mode, and Anno 2070 review, get this mode, get it, download it, also download the cookie, and yeah, you will experience a heck of a lot of fun with this. Like I said, it's really awesome playing this with all these different additions and kind of tweaks you can do in this new mode. So that said, I'll wish you all a good time, and I'll see you again in my next review, which I've already said is going to be another video game review. So stay tuned.